If you like the idea of dividend stocks but hate the idea of waiting forever to get paid those dividends, then this series is for you.
That's what I'm talking about!
Welcome back to the channel, or welcome to the channel if it's your very first time here. My name is Troy, and in this series, I spend hours doing research to find the hidden gems of the dividend world so you don't have to. For example, this week there were 118 stocks that had an ex-dividend date between September 8th and September 12th of 2025. 42 of those stocks showed that they can not only pay, but also grow their dividend for at least 5 consecutive years, and only 9 of those stocks were able to make the risk of investing into individual stocks worth it by also outperforming the S&P 500 over a long period of time. I then took those 9 stocks and picked my 5 favorites to share with you guys today.
Sounds like a good plan to me.
Now, one thing to note is it's very important that you guys watch this video when it drops, which is every single Friday at 8 a.m. Central Standard Time, because every single stock from today's list is going to have an ex-dividend date of this coming week, which simply put is the date you must own the stock before in order to get paid the next dividend from that company. In other words, and simply put, if there is a stock that you guys like from today's list and you're watching it on the date of the ex-dividend date or any day after, you're going to have to wait 3 long months before you get the very first money from that company, and we all know
Ain't nobody got time for that!
Now, before we get to the good stuff, do me a favor and tap on that like button, as that tells YouTube that I'm doing good work over here. And now let's kick this week's list off with number 5, which is Broadridge Financial Solutions, stock ticker BR. Including today's video, this is now the 3rd time I've spoken about this stock in this series, including 2 selections in a row. And if you go back to the very first time I spoke about it, which was in episode 117, or September 6th of 2024, Broadridge Financial Solutions was sitting at a price of $207.59 per share at the time of that first mention, which leads to both an outperformance versus the S&P 500 and more than a 25.5% return since then. BR is a quarterly payer in the technology sector, paying $3.90 per share per year with a forward dividend yield of 1.53%. BR has been paying and growing its dividend for the last 18 years. They have a 3-year dividend growth rate of 11.2%, a 5-year dividend growth rate of 10.26%, and a payout ratio sitting at 41.17%. Now, at the time of recording, Broadridge Financial Solutions was trading nearly 6% off of its 52-week high. It has an ex-dividend date of September 11th with a payout date of October 2nd. And looking at this chart, you can see that 10 years ago, Broadridge Financial Solutions had a share price of $52.79 per share, which means your total return into this stock over those past 10 years while only reinvesting dividends would have came out to be $57,696.43, which did outperform the S&P 500 by $18,951.40. Next up on this week's list, coming in at number 4, is Dick's Sporting Goods, stock ticker DKS. Including today's video, this is now the 2nd time I've talked about this stock in this series, including 1 selection in a row. And if you go back to the very first time I spoke about it, which was episode 145 or March 21st of 2025, Dick's Sporting Goods was sitting at $195.45 per share at that first mention, and while it has gone up since then to the tune of 10.28% total, it's slightly underperformed the market over this very short time frame. DKS is a quarterly payer in the consumer discretionary sector, paying $4.85 per share per year with a forward dividend yield of 2.28%. DKS has been paying and growing its dividend for the last 11 years. They have a 3-year dividend growth rate sitting at 35.73%, a 5-year dividend growth rate sitting at 31.53%, and a payout ratio that makes it sustainable sitting at 15.58%. Now, at the time of recording, Dick's Sporting Goods was trading 16.42% off of its 52-week high. It has an ex-dividend date of September 12th with a payout date of September 26th. And looking at this chart, you guys can see that 10 years ago, DKS was worth $50.13 per share, meaning a single lump sum $10,000 investment would have been turned into $55,366.49, which outperformed the S&P 500 by $16,621.46. Next up on this week's list, coming in at number 3, is Garmin, stock ticker GRMN. Including today's video, this is actually the very first time I'm telling you guys about this stock, so let's learn some more right here. Garmin is a quarterly payer in the consumer discretionary sector, paying $3.60 per share per year with a forward dividend yield of 1.49%. Garmin has been paying and growing its dividend for the last 8 years, and right here is the only reason this stock wasn't higher on this week's list. They have a 3-year dividend growth rate sitting at 4.76%, a 5-year dividend growth rate sitting at 6.31%, and a payout ratio sitting at 41.29%. At the time of recording, Garmin was trading 1.9% off of its 52-week high. It has an ex-dividend date of September 12th with a payout date of September 26th. And checking out their chart over the past 10 years, you can see that Garmin had an original starting share price of $37.61, which means a $10,000 investment into Garmin 10 years ago would now be worth $86,203.26, which outperformed the S&P 500 in the same time frame by $47,458.23. And really quick, before we get to the last two stocks on this week's list, if you haven't already, make sure that like button is tapped to support the video. And if you really want to help me out, use the comment section down below. I really want to know what you guys think of this week's list, good or bad. And more importantly, most importantly, if you guys own any stocks from this week's list, how are they doing for you? Let me know down below. But now, let's get to number 2. Next up on this week's list, the runner-up coming in at number 2 is NASDAQ, stock ticker NDAQ. Including today's video, this is now the second time I've spoken about this stock in this series, including 2 selections in a row. And if you go back to the first time I spoke about it, which was episode 156, or June 6th of 2025, NASDAQ had a stock price of $85.61 per share at that first mention a few months back, and since then has both outperformed the S&P 500 and returned just over 11% since I just spoke about it a little less than 3 months ago. NASDAQ is a quarterly payer in the financial sector, paying $1.08 per share per year with a forward dividend yield of 1.14%. NASDAQ has been paying and growing its dividend for the last 13 years. It has a 3-year dividend growth rate of 10.19%, a 5-year dividend growth rate of 9.35%, and a payout ratio sitting at 29.1%. Now, at the time of recording, NASDAQ was trading nearly 3% off of its 52-week high. It has an ex-dividend date of September 12th with a payout date of September 26th. And checking out this chart, you can see that 10 years ago, NDAQ was worth $17.06 per share, meaning a single lump sum $10,000 investment, while only reinvesting dividends since then, would now be worth $65,496.29, which outperformed the S&P 500 by $26,751.26. And here it is. You made it to the number 1 stock on this week's list, the stock you guys must know about before next week begins, and that's Victory Capital, stock ticker VCTR. Including today's video, I've now spoken about this stock 5 times in this series, including 5 selections in a row. And if you go back to the very first time I tried to tell you guys about this, way back in episode 117, or September 6th of 2024, Victory Capital was sitting at a price of $51.18 per share at that first mention, which means it has both outperformed the S&P 500 and returned over 43% in just the last year. VCTR is a quarterly payer in the financial sector, paying $1.96 per share per year with a forward dividend yield of 2.75%. VCTR has been paying and growing its dividend for the last 6 years, and listen to these dividend growth rates. They have a 3-year dividend growth rate sitting at 30.21%, a 5-year dividend growth rate, you see it sitting at 55.36%, and a payout ratio sitting at 28.89%. Now, at the time of recording, Victory Capital was trading 2.91% off of its 52-week high. It has an ex-dividend date of September 10th with a payout date of September 25th. And looking at this chart, I want you guys to notice that this is only over the last 7.5 years because that's as far as the history goes back. But 7.5 years, Victory Capital was worth $11.60 per share, meaning a $10,000 investment into Victory Capital those 7.5 years ago would have been turned into $71,474.64, which outperformed the S&P 500 by $43,249.04 in the same 7.5 years. With that being said, you guys made it here to the end of the video, but before you click off and go about your day, there are 3 dates that are essential for you guys to remember. This video comes out on September 5th, 2025. The earliest ex-dividend date from the stocks in this week's list is September 10th of 2025, meaning your decision is going to be due by September 9th of 2025 if any of these stocks caught your eye and you don't want to miss the very next dividend. With that being said, you 1000% missed every ex-dividend date from last week's list, but if you're still in the market for 5 super high quality dividend stocks, you can check that out right here. But until next time, see you.